on. Don't shout at me. Don't shout at me. No, you came voluntarily. Did I ask you to come? No, don't shout at me. I'm defending fascism. No, I'm exposing you as a fascist. Because do you realize, I'll tell you how. You asked me a question. Hold on.
How am I a fascist with people who are hurtful and raped, and there's rapists who are still on the
Are you familiar with the black shirts in Italy or the brown shirts in Germany? Do you realize that they would go to campuses, goons, and would stand in the back of the room, and when somebody tried to make an intelligent presentation and answer questions, they would shout them down, yell at them, try to intimidate them, and count as success if they could get the event canceled and the speaker threatened. But see, the problem is, sometimes you get speakers like me who are not scared of people like you. We recognize your frauds. I recognize that ultimately you are afraid of ideas. You're not willing to engage with me. Yes, you're afraid of ideas. You're not afraid of fascists. You think I pose a threat to you? I'm an immigrant. I came to America with nothing. What threat do I pose to you?
You promoted dangerous, violent ideas that kill millions of people.
I propose dangerous, violent ideas that kill people? Who have I killed?
You look at capitalism. You are a part of
Capitalism? Do you realize that Hitler's deadly opponent was capitalism? Have you read the Nazi 25-point platform? Let me give you a few themes from it. State control of the banks. Do you support that? No. State control of healthcare. Do you support that? State control of education. Do you support that? No. All right. What I'm trying to get at is the fascist ideology is one that is distinctly on the left. Whether or not you personally support it.
Not any political theory. Fascism is specifically on the right. It is talking about a race superior to another. You are not saying it's about the left has problems. The left has been blown.
All right, hold on. I don't look. In fairness, there's going to be plenty of time to engage you. But let me just say this. No movement that calls itself a national socialist movement is going to be on the right. And the idea that the fascists are right-wing because they support racial superiority, wait a minute. The guy who showed the Ku Klux Klan movie in the White House was Woodrow Wilson, a progressive Democrat. So progressivism was married to racism at the hip. So don't pretend it was a right-wing phenomenon. It wasn't.
This is flipping it on its ear at its finest. People showed up to call this man a fascist, and then he exposed them for wearing the title that they tried to pin on him, accusing someone of what you're doing. Ridiculous. In the psychiatric profession, they call that projection. And what just happened up there on the podium, we call that domination.
My next guest, who is Shivani Dave. She is a journalist and a presenter at Virgin Radio, just down the corridor. Good afternoon to you, Shivani.
Good afternoon, Julia.
Thanks.
You know my pronouns are they, them. How are you doing?
Yeah. Thank you for telling me your pronouns. I use correct grammar. So the only thing I would need to refer you to is to your face would be you. But I'm not being rude. You can choose your pronouns. You can choose what you want to call yourself, but you don't get to require me to use incorrect grammar and factually incorrect things. You're not a plural. You're a one person, and you're a female person. So I will use she and her. Thank you very much.
Do what you like, I guess.
Well, there you are. You didn't need to tell me then, did you?
Maybe I'm just making sure people know in case they're watching and they want to refer to me respectfully.
Is it disrespectful for me to use correct factual grammar?
It's not incorrect or unfactual grammar to use singular they them pronouns for an individual. But we're here to talk about the cast review.
Yeah, but you chose to bring it up.
You chose to use the incorrect pronouns for me.
I chose to use the correct pronouns for a single woman who is appearing on my show.
I'm not a single woman, though. I'm a very special non-binary trans person, as you just pointed out. I
didn't
really
just point
understand
that out.
in the crowd.
I didn't just point that out. I introduced you as a journalist and a Virgin Radio presenter.
No, just before I came on, you were talking about how people with all these labels like to be special. And I'm just making sure that everyone knows I'm special.
Okay, I'm not special. I'm just a boring old heterosexual married woman.
Above all correct grammar first, English does dictate we use they when referring to a group of people. As this appears to be just one person not identifying as a group of people, it's a sound argument. Her guest is singular, not plural.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
Trans rights are human
rights, protect trans kids, and black trans lives matter.
Did you shave your hair off for the opportunity?
No, my hair's been shaved for a long time because I'm queer.
What about your hair, mate?
Have a lucky sir.
Oh, fair enough, man. My bad.
The guy who dropped the food off, he called me sir twice in a row.
Did you just assume my gender?
Hi. I use she, her pronouns. I'm not sir.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, like it's like a knife in the heart. I did specifically ask ahead of time not to be called sir. Yeah, I'm just gonna go. Okay. The Sweetwater starts at okay.
I'm so sorry. I apologize.
It's just always like a knife. It always hurts every single time. I was wondering if there's a manager I could talk to about something that happened. Yeah, I was called sir. Oh, okay. It just really sucks every time it happens. Sorry about that. I don't need to be called ma'am. I just need to not be called sir, you know?
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you.
We don't care.
Thank you. Did you call me sir? I just want to tell you that the person who gave me this called me sir.
What?
Called me sir.
Oh.
It's just like, it kind of just hurts a lot to get called sir.
Oh, sorry about that.
Stop it. Get some help.
Very good. Thank you so much. No. Yeah. Thank you. I'm not a sir. Nothing like a good misgendering. It is a knife in the gut when I get called sir. I feel like I need to tell him. I need to tell him that hurt. It hurts more, though, and it's not intentional because it means like this is sir to him. I know you didn't mean it, but I'm not a sir.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I know you didn't mean it. It's just, it hurts. I know when people clock me, it's fine, but like it does kind of hurt.
Every teacher that has a pride flag in their classroom should be fired and arrested. The gay flag is a sexual flag. It represents nothing other than sexual things. Gay, bisexual, transgender, and questioning. What business is it of anyone on this board of what children would like to do with other children? It is none of your business. Now you're sending out surveys that's asking students what their gender is, what their pronouns are, and whether or not you should be telling their parents. I refuse to believe that any of you think that that's appropriate. Because if you think that that is appropriate, you would be a predator. There's images that are going to be displayed today for you to see of a child setting another child off, and that's in your classroom.
Pushback on your speech. Who came back and said, you don't know what you're talking about?
The main people that pushed back against this was my community, the LGBT community. They're very vocal in this, the far left, when it comes to these types of things, the woke side of this. And then also a lot of woke women push back on this.
Reaction, you're doing something like this as a parent. What are your thoughts about this?
As a parent and somebody who used to work in schools, this is to me a deeply anti-parental rights movement. And the school really wants to get in the way of the relationship between parents and their children. And you have guidance counselors that are being told by administration, keep it confidential, don't make phone calls home to parents. You need to make sure these kids are protected, and they present it as a guide of protection essentially against their own parents. So you have kids being turned against their parents in many respects, and they feel like the parents are the enemy. They no longer speak to their parents. It breaks down the lines of communication, which essentially enables indoctrination on many levels then.
I mean, that is scary to have a bunch of your friends get butchered by some random crazy person.
What is the most effective way that people can lose weight? Well, your experience as a doctor.
Right. One of the things...
Eat less food, do more exercise.
They made us take biology in school, probably for good reason to. It wasn't just to pass time or to give the teachers a break. That's what study hall was for. No, biology was for us to learn something.
Yeah, I'm grateful that he brought that up, and because it's very disturbing to me to see him try to pretend that my father-in-law distanced from me or said something in favor of anything that Rabbi Shmuley is saying. He would never do that. It is very important to understand that, he does support Israel, and he has reaffirmed his support for Israel. And you can imagine that within any family, you have disagreements about things, but fundamentally, it's all love, and it's good for us to have these conversations. Prior to him posting the statement, I had just gotten back from vacation with him, literally 48 hours earlier. There was something incredibly demonic about a person trying to use the Bible at the beginning of his statement, as he did, trying to quote scripture and immediately following it up by trying to pull a family apart. I mean, that is utterly unholy. And I think the question of holiness and what is holy is relevant to this discussion. I think this is a conversation that a lot of people are having as well. Look, prior to October 7th, I don't think many people were engaged with what is happening in Israel. You know, we kind of all said the same thing. Israel is our friend and ally. I count myself among those people. Post October 7th, the world, and especially I would say Zionists in media, were demanding that we all pay attention. And when we began to pay attention, we didn't like what we saw. You cannot tell me to ever feel comfortable with 18,000 children being ruthlessly murdered. You can't get me to feel comfortable as a Christian with the amount of more explosives dropped, tons of explosives dropped on Gaza than were dropped in Hiroshima. This doesn't make sense to me. Gaza is 30 miles long, 7 miles wide. It's incredibly dense population. And this is, by the way, according to Haaretz, that 40,000 Palestinians have been murdered. I believe they're getting those numbers from the Gaza Health Ministry. And here's what I would like to say to you, Rabbi, since you're quoting scripture, okay? The one that's relevant to me is woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness. And if you'd like to dive into a little more scripture, I think what's relevant is Revelation 3:9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. And I'm speaking directly to you, Rabbi Shmuley. The fact that you would try to say, I am Jewish, and this is what I believe, and do and say the things that you are doing. People can see and hear evil, and what you are doing right now is an act of evil. The lies that you are telling, not just on me, but also on my family members, are a good example for the world to see what we are referring to when we call something radical Zionism.
The Bible is supposed to be there to promote peace. It shouldn't be used to call a person evil. If your intention is to start calling other human evil, you're referencing the wrong book.
I use she, her pronouns. I'm not sir. Yeah, like it's like a knife in the heart. I did specifically ask ahead of time not to be called sir. Yeah, I'm just gonna go. It's just always like a knife. It always hurts every single time. I was wondering if there's a manager I could talk to about something that happened. Yeah, I was called sir. Thank you. I'm not sir. Not sir. Not sir. But the guy who dropped the food off, he called me sir twice in a row.
It's one thing to purposely not address someone how they want to be addressed, but when it's an honest mistake, it's totally different. You could even hear one of the people apologize after the mistake, and this person still wanted to talk to the manager. Did it not look like this person was heading out in public looking for trouble? Filming themselves and hoping someone would call them sir so they could complain? Maybe it's time for you and your dog to pick up a new hobby.
And someone invaded the pitch. Terry Alderman did his shoulder in. Johnny Bairstow just waving to the dressing room. Maybe it's his gear.
Tremendous stuff. Johnny then turfed him over the railing at the end like a piece of rubbish, which is exactly what he should have done. Well, 3 Just Stop Oil protesters rushed the pitch, dead set on ruining the test match as they've ruined so many other national events in the last year or so. They were arrested. Groundsmen scrubbed their orange powder, which fortunately wasn't put on the pitch itself, or it could have wrecked the play for the entire day. So play was able to resume after just 20 minutes. Anyone who knows cricket will tell you that a spot of light drizzle in a neighbouring village could suspend a test match longer than that. So the joke in the end was on them. But what's most impressive about this spectacle is that in one fell swoop, Johnny Bairstow triumphed where countless police officers and irritated bystanders have failed. Let's take a look at an action replay. On come the protesters with their orange powder and their t-shirts, determined to wreck things. But no, there's no stop the oil. There's just this: lift and shift. The Indian wicketkeeper ferrying off the protester pathetically like he's an ironing board and dumping him like a garbage sack, to use the American vernacular.
We're trying to have a lovely game of cricket over here, and these protesters keep jumping onto the field. They didn't get any message across, they angered the sports fans, and then they got carried off the field by one of the players. Maybe they weren't expecting the man to have such strength, but don't forget, that's a professional athlete you're messing with. You're lucky that that's all that happened.
Chairman, Ms. Berry, let me just start with you. you said in response to a question from, I think it was Senator Graham, you praised the protests going on campuses. I just want to make sure I got this right, so you correct me now, as a national organic human rights movement. What did you mean by that?
The mass movement in support of Palestinian human rights is happening on college campuses across the country after students are learning more about the history of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict and the specific targeting of Palestinian human rights. Yes.
Oh, okay. I just want to be clear about what you're praising and not praising.
Well, praising.
Let's have a look here. So,
yeah.
This long live the Intifada.
Yeah.
Is this an example of the what did you say, national organic human rights movement that you mean? Is this a human rights movement?
I'm not sure that using the term intifada, which literally just means to like shake off or get rid of, is effective, as most Americans don't actually associate it with a human rights issue. So I don't think that's effective. No, Senator?
Wait a minute. You don't think it's effective, but you would agree that this is calling for the destruction of the state of Israel. This is after the
No, Senator.
No, it's not. This isn't calling for the killing of Jews.
I don't know that person and I don't know that sign. So I don't know what that's
you don't know what
calling
this
for.
means?
I don't think.
You haven't seen this before? Did you see these protests on Rabbi, do you know what this means?
Yes, it's a call for the destruction of the state of Israel and probably the killing of Jews everywhere.
I do not agree with that, Senator.
You don't think that's hate speech right here?
Long live the Intifada can mean different. As I see the problem.
It can mean different
Senator,
things. Wait a minute. These are protests, violent protests on campuses that targeted Jewish students, attacked them personally, prevented them from going to camp, going to class, put them in fear of their safety after the October 7th attacks on the state of Israel that murdered more Jews than at any time since the Holocaust. And you're saying you think that this is an ambiguous message?
I'm saying that any student targeted on campus, a Jewish student.
Will you condemn this right here? Right here. Long live the Intifada. Will you condemn that?
Condemning Jewish students on a campus is being targeted, and the Office of Civil Rights should successfully be given funding.
Will you condemn this
them.
as hate speech?
I think that can be hate speech, but I don't think it's automatically hate speech. The problem is that there's nuance I'm trying to introduce to this conversation.
What's the nuance when these people are marching and calling for Jews to be killed?
Sir, because Intifada also means uprising for Palestinians. The way
it's ambiguous, so it's hard to say. Well, oh my gosh.
If the message says to kill all Jews, there really isn't any way around that. That doesn't sound too ambiguous. When you're talking about murder, there's very little ambiguity, quite a lot of certainty, and quite a lot of hate.
Education background. So I guess a lot of people don't know what your undergraduate degree was in.
So I was at UCLA in political science and then Harvard Law School.
Okay. So you don't have, you wouldn't consider yourself an expert in sociology?
I don't consider sociology a particularly expert field, but go ahead. I think I'm able to read a sociological study.
It is a field of study, but so you're not necessarily an expert.
Yes, there are lots of fields of study.
Right. Well, what I'm getting at is there's a lot of topics.
Put it this way, I know a lot less about welding than I do about sociology.
What I'm getting at is that you're not considered an expert in sociology, psychology, gender studies, lesbian dance theory, any of these things that you've brought up tonight.
I know a lot more about all those others than lesbian dance theory. As far as, if you want to take issue with the argument, I would urge you not to use the argument from authority, which is somebody has a PhD by their name, they know what they're talking about.
Right. No, I'm not.
That's a dumb argument.
What I'm trying to get at is that the fact that you have any other further education in any of these topics or any of these fields of study.
I don't need a 7-year degree in sociology to know when I hear it.
And granted, that's your opinion.
Right.
But would you also...
Because I'm here, yeah, giving it.
That would mean that you're also offering kind of an unqualified opinion on a lot of these topics.
See, again, you're just making the argument from authority. I don't think slapping a PhD from Ferris State next to your name makes you an expert in all things in the field in which you propose to speak. Okay, the fact is that either my argument's good or my argument's bad. Citing to my credentials is a really bad way of making an argument. It's like it's actually the equivalent of, it's so funny, when people do this, it's the equivalent of actually a religious person saying, citing to the Bible for an argument. I'm a very religious person, right? I mean, see this? It's the yarmulke, okay? I'm a religious person, okay? I never cite to the Bible. The reason I don't cite to the Bible is because that's an argument from authority. Okay, you may not believe the authority to which I'm citing. I don't believe the authority to which you're citing. So you're going to have to make me an argument as to what I'm saying that's wrong instead of just saying I don't have the properly enumerated degree from the institution of your choice.
I'm merely citing academia. If you haven't done any significant study or any type of educational, establish yourself as a PhD or a doctorate in any of these programs, so how can you make a qualified opinion on any of these topics is my question.
Because I have read the studies and I can have an opinion on them.
And that's your opinion and mine was just stated, so thank you.
Yes, that was my opinion.
When they take you out into a field where all the bulls are and you ask, "What's that smell?" The other person doesn't need to be an expert in bovine. They can tell you what you are smelling is bull.
Hello, my name is Quentin Merritt. I'm a mathematician and a physicist here, a double major, and I also just won the most prestigious award in the country to pursue research at any institution I want, the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship. So I think I'm pretty, qualified to say that most of what you're saying is based on old data. But my question to you, and so I want you all to realize that.
Last month, but sure.
For example, gender identity disorder, that's the DSM-4, bro. We use the DSM-5 now for psychologists to be able to talk about...
I literally cited the DSM-5 in the speech, and it's called gender dysphoria, which is a term that I use throughout the speech, not gender identity disorder.
You sound like a bozo, bro. And you get no and you can't even make your wife wet, bro, so what's good?
So, let me just say, the nice thing about having several small children, I don't feel the necessity to have my masculinity
challenged. If we're using a
by someone
Western
like you.
colonial idea of gender, then why should it apply? If we're using, because the gender binary is a Western colonialist framework of gender.
You're right. Men and women don't exist in any other culture.
No.
You're
Think about Native American.
Nailed it.
Third gender people. I'm not saying that. Third gender people exist in Native American societies, Western African societies, like Southern Native American societies, like Mexico. So in other places that are not white dominated,
And they
like
are
the United States or
incorrect.
Europe, and so you're
I'm
saying
they're
white,
biologically
so non-white
incorrect.
people. I'm a mathematician and a physicist. You cannot tell me.
So I have a question.
And also, you're not a biologist.
So I have a question.
I'm 20.
As a mathematician and a physicist, what in the hell do you know about human biology?
And you got
that
your
allows
law
you to
degree from
deny it?
Harvard. What do you know about biology? You got your law degree from Harvard.
And frankly, I would ask another question. If your logic is so flawed as a mathematician and a physicist, I would suggest that whichever institution gave you an award, revoke it immediately.
It's hard to make a solid argument when you start by giving yourself way too much credit. Reveal that someone else isn't qualified to give an opinion based on their fields of study when your fields of study also don't apply to the topic. Cap it off by lashing out and trying to insult the person when they're trying to talk. And then to top it all off, you forgot to show up with sleeves. Yeah, tank tops don't win many arguments for you.
A leftist friend and I once got into a debate about whether or not white males' opinions should carry weight in discussions concerning the LGBT community, feminism, and race, and she argued that white males' words should not carry the same weight as marginalized groups that they themselves do not belong to, and that the best thing that they can do is listen.
That argument, which lies at the root of the intersectional argument, is nothing but sheer bigotry that undermines the most crucial element of a free republic. A republic is based on the idea that you and I can have a conversation, that my membership in an identity group does not obviate my need to make an argument to you or my necessity for listening to an argument from you. There's nothing I despise more than the notion that I am supposed to shut up because your truth trumps the truth. There's no such thing as your truth, there is just the truth. There's your experience, and we should listen to your experience, and then we should also listen to data, and we should listen to other evidence. It runs contrary to every element of good faith conversation to suggest that you have to sit down and shut up because of your color. And if we reverse the colors, everybody would understand how racist and horrible this is.
It's true the phrase "my truth" is a problem at the start. It truly just means my opinion and doesn't get to take over the truth. Everyone's opinion matters. No one has their own truth. There's one truth. There are no alternative facts.
Most abortions are performed with a pill that is simply hormones that causes the embryo to disattach from the uterus and to be released into the menstrual blood. So
Causes the what?
the period.
No, it causes what? What's the E word you said?
The embryo.
What's an embryo?
An embryo is one of the stages of a developing human.
Amen. So that's abortion. Either way, correct. You're killing a human. She said that's one stage of a developing human. So when the embryo, when you take the pill, it's the same thing. You're killing a human. Now this is what you're saying. You're saying following Christ. You can follow Christ and say it's okay to kill humans. That's what you're saying.
All right.
Amen. Amen. That's my point.
Yeah, there's certain words you don't want to use in your argument, and that lady used the last word she wanted to say. That's called boxing yourself into a corner of which there is no escape.
Mr. Washington, you're here in D.C. during an interesting time with the transition in the White House. Just wondering who you wound up supporting in the election and why.
Go ahead now. Fences.
How about this? I don't know if you saw it. There's a fake news story going around. It got thousands of shares online. You saw that. And I just thought you might want to clear it up because people are confused.
There's a few words that start with F and end with K, but that one ends with E, but it starts with F.
Yeah, but just too vague. You got to be specific right now. F, K, and E.
What was the question?
Well, that was a question. Who you wound up supporting in the election, presidential election?
It's none of your business.
None of my business?
None of your business.
Well, I'm only asking. Let me ask you this. What issue do you hope President-elect Trump tackles? What's number one in your mind with the new administration?
I don't know. I'd have to be more informed to just say off the top of my head the number one issue. I'm not sure. Education, jobs, health. I mean, there's so many.
When asked to comment on race relations in America, Denzel gave some wisdom to all the woke people out there.
Right now, under President Obama, over the last 8 years, in your mind, have race relations improved under his leadership?
Race relationships have to do with race relationships. You're white or whatever you are. I'm black or whatever I am. We're standing here talking now. That's how we get things done. You can't legislate love. The President of the United States can't legislate us into liking each other. We have to step forward and ask questions about each other and engage. There's no law that says, because I'm president, you all got to get along now.
Who doesn't love Denzel? Especially when he imparts fantastic wisdom. Let's not put the race relations on the president. Let's put them on ourselves. Do we want people to all get along? Of course. We are the people. Let's all get along. And next time you ask Denzel who he voted for, remember it's none of your business.
History Month you find
ridiculous.
Why?
You're going to relegate my history to a month?
Oh, come on.
What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month? No, well, come on, tell me.
Well, I'm Jewish.
Okay, which month is Jewish History Month?
There isn't one.
Oh, why not?
Yeah.
Do you want one?
No.
I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month. Black history is American history.
How are we going to get rid of racism?
Stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man. I know you as Mike Wallace. You know me as Morgan Freeman.
Well, he didn't play God and Bruce Almighty for no reason. The man is wise, and he has a lovely speaking voice and makes an excellent point. Don't call someone a white man. Don't call someone a black man. Just call them man. Or if you know their name, just say their name. It couldn't be any simpler,
You say you care about the students, but half of you are not sure what gender is. I'm a transgender woman. My pronouns are she, her. And I will only accept those pronouns. I will not be addressed any other way.
I think it's absolutely ridiculous that you guys are even considering letting bathrooms and locker rooms being co-ed. Boys are boys and girls are girls. It's simple and basic. It's always been that way, and that's why we have separate bathrooms. I'm not going to allow my girls or my boys to shower with the opposite sex. People are so open-minded, their brains have literally fell out. Does nobody know why we had opposite sport teams and opposite bathrooms for boys and girls? To protect both from one another?
If a guy gives you an engagement ring and he calls out the engagement, should you give the ring back?
No, hell no. It's my ring.
Okay, so why is it if a man withdraws consent to an engagement, he loses the ring?
I mean, I don't think women are objects like rings are.
I wouldn't say he loses the ring, but you lost the value of that woman.
Okay. If marriage is supposed to be an equal partnership, why does a woman get an expensive engagement ring but a man doesn't?
I mean, I'm sure they could, but I don't think most of them want it. I mean, they get a ring. It's just not really as
What if a guy wanted like a $20,000 motorcycle?
Huh? There's not a big pool of good men.
That's a lie.
100% lie.
That's not a lie.
That is a lie.
That's not a like me.
Listen.
What?
There's not a lot of good men who want y'all.
I'm clapping for myself. There's a lot of good men out there we're the good man that they hiding under a rocker in a cave. They everywhere. They at the gas station. They at Costco. They at Equinox. They at the bank. They walking right past you and you don't show up on their radar because of the way you are.
Yeah, don't forget, there's the NBA and there's the WNBA. They have no plans to combine those two leagues, so we probably shouldn't combine the bathrooms either.
Hello, everyone. I've been coming here for 5 years now, and I was going to talk to you about some practical things that I thought you could change about 3210, but I've changed my mind. I've been really confused over the last 5 years as to why we spend 45 minutes to an hour of every public meeting talking about how great everyone is and how great everything is in the schools, and now I've figured it out. I figured it out because all these people came here to defend you all from hurtful words. This is obnoxious. Let me just say, there is one goal for the educational system. It should be to prepare children to enter careers to be productive members of society. It is not a counseling session. It is not a self-help area. It is not somewhere to find yourself, and we should not be led by the children, for goodness sake. The children are called dependents for a reason. They depend on us who have fully developed brains. You cannot feel your way through life. The issues that we are talking about, we are bringing you statistics. We are talking about scholastics. We are talking about funding. We are talking about busing. We are talking about trying to figure out how to make our children be as successful as possible. And I am sure that that is your goal. And what we have been called tonight is what they're claiming that we're saying to children. We're having an adult conversation. There are not children in this room. We aren't going into the schools and calling them names. They call us Marxists and hateful and bigots and everything else under the sun. Well, let me tell you, less than 5% of the entire population of North Carolina identifies as LGBTQ. You guys all claim you want democracy. Well, you know what democracy is? It's the majority plus one. It's 50 plus 1. You know what? More than 50% of the people in this state claim that they believe in God, Almighty God, who made us male and female, God who made marriage between a man and a woman, God who said that we must protect our children. The fact that we can stand up here and we know, we can brag about all of the wonderful graduations, but we know the statistics. 50% of children did not pass their end of grade tests. What are we celebrating? We have children coming up here telling us how horrible the mental health crisis is. Why? Most of us went to public school, and all of our peers are not in mental health crises. We have to ask ourselves, what are we doing to our children? I'm going to say we are discussing things with them that they are not emotionally, intellectually, and morally able to handle. That is what is causing the anxiety. That is what is causing the depression. That is what is causing the confusion. We need our children to be able to be children, to be able to be innocent, to be able to enjoy childhood and not know all of the drama and all of the difficulties in adult life. That is what we want. We want our children to be able to read and write and to think for themselves, and we demand that the children who fear God are protected in your schools.
Yeah, you don't want to celebrate 50% of children failing their classes. Listen to how angry this woman is. She doesn't want her kids failing their classes because then they will be living with her for another year. She needs some freedom. Get those kids passing classes and out the house and on to college.
If you'd like to be a woman, you can identify as a woman. I don't know why there is such an issue.
Anyone can, right?
I don't see a problem with
Just literally put their hand up and say, I'm a woman. Okay, why can't I identify as a black...
Well, firstly, I mean, it was...
I'm serious. I'm serious. If I can identify as anything without any need to prove I'm actually what that is, why can't I on International Women's Day say, I'm Piers Morgan, I'm a black...
I think taking it to a kind of absurd status,
I think
we're
that's
talking
what,
about quite a
with
strong
respect, I think that
change.
you've already opened the absurdity door by saying it is limitless. You can do what you like. Anyone can say, I'm a woman. How many genders are there?
2.
There are 2 genders.
Oh.
Wow. So you don't believe in transgenders at all?
Well, I think there are...
Whoa, hang on. Whoa. There are 2 genders?
Well, it's taught in...
Well, you say, well... You've literally just launched this huge defense of transgenderism. Now you've eradicated it.
That was Piers Morgan, the black lesbian, putting that woman on the ropes. As a black lesbian, he's 1 for 1. He should consider staying as a black lesbian. He's a master debater.
I'm a proud Latina, I'm a proud family, come from a proud family of immigrants, and I'm an even prouder Democrat. And my question here today is based off a comment that you said earlier. You said that the merits of the Three-Fifths Compromise is up for debate. So who are you, or who is anyone, to debate the merit of one's humanity? How can you deny the legacy the Three-Fifths Compromise has had and that slavery has had on the extent of racism in the United States?
Look, right here in the first row, I think she got up. There's my wife, Debbie. She's from Venezuela. Her mom is Mexican-American. I'm married to a Latina. She's a first-generation immigrant. I'm a first-generation immigrant. So we're all coming to America and trying to make sense of all this. Now, quite honestly, I think you would have to admit that I have done nothing in this talk today to either minimize or downplay, far from downplaying racism. I've stressed it. I'm simply pointing the finger of blame where it belongs, and you're trying to hide it. See, the difference is, because you are a Democrat, you are willing to overlook the crimes of the Democratic Party. But let me tell you this, the Democratic Party is in fact, the party of slavery and segregation and Jim Crow and the Ku Klux Klan and lynching and all the horrors of American history, including complicity with fascism, the internment of the Japanese Americans in World War II, the reigniting of the Klan in the late teens and 20s. All of this was done by Democrats, and they were opposed all along the way by Republicans. So the problem is that today, if you're a Democrat, you're a committed Democrat, you like the welfare state, you like Obamacare, or you're a progressive historian, you are in the awkward position of having to confess to a whole series of crimes that your team did. Crimes, by the way, that the Democratic Party has never admitted, never apologized for, never paid 1 penny of restitution for. So this is a very ugly position to be in. And the only way to do it is to lie through your teeth. Hide the actions of the Democratic Party. Blame everybody else. America did it. The white man did it. The Southerners did it. Everybody except the guys who actually did it.
That wasn't even a response. That was a lecture series that he dropped on that woman's head. That was like half of a history class he just rolled out from the podium. I hope everyone was taking notes.
For some reason, something has happened in your life. Maybe you need therapy. He doesn't think you need therapy. But something has happened that like somebody wrecked you, because the way that you view men is so sad.
I do not hate all men at all. I know that there are a lot of good men out there. I think the ones...
But they're not coming for you. The good men aren't coming for you. And so I want you to, in the most loving way, I want you to look at yourself and be like, why are the good men not coming for me?
Yeah, right? Like, what the hell?
You ran your mouth all freaking night.
They're turning on you.
Sat here for 5-6 hours and listened to her.
Hold on, I just don't understand why someone who is single is sitting here talking mostly for 6 hours about relationships
You're
to
right.
women
I
who are
should
happily married.
take an exit.
Like, if you're talking about the authority on relationships, wouldn't you ask the people in the room that are happily married?
Facts.
Wait, hold on. Guys, you bullied her. You guys bullied her.
Bullied her.
We bullied her?
When someone is looking for relationship advice, they don't go to a single person. Just like you don't ask a fat person for diet advice, and you don't ask a raging alcoholic for the secret to inner peace.
I just want to read you this poster that I have because I hear a lot of pro-lifers say that life begins at conception. Mm-hmm. So my poster reads, "Life begins when you understand living women matter more than potential babies."
What is it?
What do you mean?
If it's a potential baby, what is inside of a woman?
It's a fetus.
Is it living?
No.
How can it grow if it's not living?
Actually, that's like saying if an acorn is a tree.
When does the fetus become living?
That's actually a good question, but that line...
Yeah, of course, because you don't know it, because it's living. It's living.
How about you let her speak?
You're fundamentally denying science to validate your opinion.
You actively deny science, ma'am.
How am I denying? What science did I deny, Darby?
Okay, so let's look at some posters over here.
But
you don't have to be here.
I need you to tell me what science. You just made an accusation that I denied science. What science did I deny?
That it's a child inside of you. It is a clump of cells when
I'm a clump of cells. What makes me different?
That you were born. You were born.
So you don't. What you're arguing is that anything that is not born is not valuable of life.
I did not say that.
It's subjective. So when does a child or fetus or clump of cells, whatever you want to call it, when does this clump of cells or fetus become living?
When it can sustain its own life.
But when is that? When is the sustainability? No, when is sustainability?
21. About like 30 weeks to born, like 24, 30.
Because how do you sustain life? Like my newborns aren't sustainable. You can't just have a newborn and they just live on their own, right?
Right.
They're not sustainable. They need help and assistance to survive. So is a newborn not worthy of life? Is a newborn not worthy of life?
I do have one thing to say to you. How is it that when my mom was in college 30 years ago, she was protesting the exact same thing that me and these wonderful other women and men on this side have been protesting? How is it? Why? Why are we still protesting? Why are we still having to talk about this issue? It is a basic human right to have an abortion, to have a choice.
The reason we're still having the question is because some people don't want to accept the natural consequences of heterosexual sex and be inconvenienced by another human life and want to selfishly choose to end human life in order to have their whims met. That is why you're still arguing.
The best part was when the lady asked what science she was denying, and the response was, let's look at some of these posters. Hold on, those aren't pages from science books. You know how I can tell? All the science books weren't written on poster board.
So let's say you own a pencil factory, I'm a worker in that pencil factory. You can have all the machinery, you can buy all the raw materials you want, but without me, and presumably many others like me, to assemble the pencils, all you would have is a pile of wood, yellow paint, graphite, rubber, and aluminum.
Okay.
That would be worth, and that is worth less than the pencil when you try and sell it. And yet, all of that value added by labor, apart from the wages that you give me, which if we're being honest, there is a major power imbalance in our ability to negotiate that.
If all that putting the pencil together requires is basic use of your prefrontal cortex, then yes, your labor is alienable at lower rates than if you are a doctor. That's not the fault of the person who owns the machinery.
But if you didn't have workers like me and your pencil factory and you were just one man.
But I do. I have millions of people who are willing to do that voluntarily for me.
If you're just one person trying to assemble pencils, you're not going to get very far. You need workers. Capital needs labor infinitely more than labor needs capital. That's why you have worker cooperatives where the workers are the ones...
I fundamentally disagree on the distinction between capital and labor. Capital is just a term for money. If you're talking about money, money does not grow from the ground. Money only has value because it was traded for labor at one point or the products of labor. So if I take my money and I buy machinery, I have invested my labor in doing that because I didn't get the money from nowhere. Even if I got it from my parents didn't get the money from nowhere. The people who built the machines required me to trade something of value to them in order for me to obtain the machines. The people who invented the machines required people to pay them in order to get the patent to that machine so they could build the machine. The problem that I'm seeing in what you're saying is you have still failed. If what you're talking about is a system of voluntarism, you still have not named any area in which we disagree, and yet you're telling me that you're a socialist and I'm a free marketer. So one of us has got this wildly wrong, and I'm pretty sure it's not me.
The differentiation I draw, and I'm not alone in this, I'm not one person trying to redefine anything. The differentiation I and many others like me draw between socialism and capitalism is that under capitalism, when you as the owner of the factory, you give me a wage. The wage could be $7.25, it could be $15, it could be whatever an hour. Right? But you give me a wage. All the additional profit above the made from selling the pencils or whatever good you produce above what is reinvested into the company ultimately goes to you or the investors, those who own shares in the means of production.
Right.
Under socialism, those people are the workers, and the example I give, again, is cooperative enterprise.
No, those are the people who are investing the risk. So if they carry the risk, then they get the benefit. The owner of the factory carries the risk, therefore he gets the benefit. The workers in the company you mentioned, if that company were to go bankrupt, they would carry the risk as well as the benefit. If the company goes bankrupt, and this guy has to pay off all of his debts, the worker may lose his job, but he's not the one who's going to incur the debt of having gone bankrupt. If you incur risk, then you're the one who pays the downside. The worker does not pay the downside. Okay, it is the investor who pays the downside, who invested in all the machinery, who sunk millions of dollars into making your labor productive. Because guess what? Your labor is without that machinery. Gunk. Nothing. You don't have a pencil to put together. You don't got the wood. You don't got the paint. You don't got the rubber. You don't got the metal. You got nothing. Right? You're sitting there, standing outside, twiddling your thumbs. It required somebody to invest. Who do you think put more in? The guy who spent millions of dollars buying all the machinery, leasing the place, making sure there was a management structure, doing the LLC formation, making sure all the tax code was in compliance, or you standing outside because you can stick a piece of graphite into a piece of wood? Now we're done.
It's kind of like gambling. If you put your money on the line for a team to win a basketball game, you carry the risk, and you get the reward if they win. You only give a small portion to your bookie. You're not splitting all the money up evenly with everyone.
Why exactly do you think a first trimester fetus has moral value?
Okay, so a first trimester fetus has moral value because whether you consider it a potential human life or a full-on human life, it has more value than just a cluster of cells. So the real question is, where do you draw the line? So you're going to draw the line at the heartbeat, because it's very hard to draw the line at the heartbeat. There are people who are adults who are alive because of a pacemaker. They need some sort of outside force generating their heartbeat. Okay, are you going to do it based on brain function? Okay, well, what about people who are in a coma? Should we just kill them? Right? The problem is, anytime you draw any line other than the inception of the child, you end up drawing a false line that can also be applied to people who are adults. So either human life has intrinsic value or it doesn't. I think we both agree that adult human life has intrinsic value. Can we start from that premise?
I believe that sentience is what gives something moral value.
If you are in a coma from which you may awake, can I stab you?
Well, then, no. That's still potential sentience, and it's still a potential...
I agree, it is potential sentience. You know what else is potential sentience? Being a fetus.
Yeah, you can't go around stabbing people in comas. I mean, the people in the comas wouldn't notice, but it would still not be okay.
I'm not done, okay? When you're going out and attacking women, you are not a feminist. This is not defensible whatsoever. And you sit here and you say this because you care about mothers. The basis of this is that people are upset that illegal immigrants are being separated from their mothers. Why don't you refocus some of that energy to the black community? They've been having their families separated. In fact, it's subsidized in the black community. You appreciate single motherhood. You are giving more money to families for fatherless absence. So all of this selective fake outrage when you guys do not have the same defenses for the black community is really lost on me, and it's time's up on this altogether. I think the black community has had enough of you guys being selectively outraged for parents of illegal immigrants, but not for the parents of the black community who have been separated from their family for about 6 decades.
All right, and ladies, I just want to point out, let's keep this civil.
Selective outrage. That's the phrase of the day. Don't go and be outraged by one thing and then not also be outraged by something equally as bad.
I just have to say that I object strenuously to your use of the word hilarious. To me, this feels a lot like your reaction to being named in one of these manifestos. Now, you're of course not responsible for the words of somebody writing that document, but I do think that laughing at it is a real problem, because these are real families that are impacted by this violence. And I think our efforts towards talking about this have to start from a place of mutual respect, which is what I've heard from this side of the table. Now, the reason we don't have those numbers, I want those numbers as much as you do, but to say the numbers don't show something is simply not supported by the data.
Okay, and I have 38 seconds left, Ms. Mulligan, if you want to respond within that time.
The only thing I would add is that it's in the name. Terrorism, domestic terrorism, it terrorizes us. It terrorizes us in our homes. It terrorizes us in our schools. And to the points made by the other panelists, it is disproportionate to its impact on any individual life, and it's not.
You reject the idea it's something that doesn't matter, or doesn't really matter?
Absolutely reject.
Okay. All right, so here's where we are. Every member now has had 5 minutes and... Okay, and Mr. Clay, so we have 2 members who have not. So I'm going to go to the 2 members who have not yet, and we'll give an opportunity for a closing thought to any member who wants before we go.
Am I next to respond, or is Mr. Meadows?
I thought Mr. Meadows was
Mr.
next.
Meadows, okay.
Mr. Meadows is next, then Mr. Clay, then to you, Mr. Jordan.
Ms. Owens, obviously this is a gang up on you. You know, we're giving these witnesses the ability to do a rebuttal on you, and so you know, I find it unfair, Ms. Ballou. I mean, you know, candidly, for you to show mutual respect and then you to go after Ms. Owens, it's not appropriate. So, Ms. Owens, you can have 4 minutes and 34 seconds to respond. However,
you yield for a second?
I'll yield.
Thank you. I believe, Ms. Owens, when you used the word hilarious, it was referencing the fact that no one had asked you a question. It wasn't to the subject matter of the hearing. Is that right?
That is correct.
And to have another witness insinuate something that is not accurate is just not appropriate, Mr. Chairman, for how witnesses are supposed to behave in front of this committee. I also think you didn't say it doesn't matter about the subject matter of today's hearing. You said there are other subjects that matter as well, and maybe we should spend some time on those. Is that accurate?
That is correct, and they matter much, 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 much more. And I have said that. I said that in my opening, and I will say it again. You know that white supremacy and white nationalism ranks nowhere near the top of the issues that are facing Black America. And the reason that you are bringing them up in this room is because it is attempt to make the election all about race, as the Democrats
Not in
do.
my case, Ms.
Please don't
Owens.
cut
I'm
me
sorry.
off.
Please do not characterize my motive.
Mr. Chairman, it's my time.
Yeah,
it's my time.
You've got your time, Mr. Meadows. I'll give you 3 more seconds.
Every 4 years, you bring up race, and you knew exactly what I meant when I said hilarious, and you just tried to do live what the media does all the time to Republicans, to our president, and to conservatives, which you tried to manipulate what I said to fit your narrative, okay? I was not referring to the subject matter that is hilarious. I said it's hilarious that we are sitting in this room today, and I've got 2 doctors and a missus, and nobody can give us real numbers that we can respond to so we can assess how big of a threat this is, because you know that it is not as big of a threat as you are trying to make it out to be so that you can manipulate. And the audacity of you to bring up the Christchurch shooting manifesto and make it seem as if I laughed at people that were slaughtered by a homicidal maniac is, in my opinion, absolutely despicable. And I think that we should be above that. To try to assign reality or any meaning to a homicidal maniac writing a manifesto, which, by the way, let the record show, also stated Spyro the Dragon, the child's cartoon, as a source of inspiration. He also cited Nelson Mandela as a source of information. I don't think that Nelson Mandela has inspired mosque shootings. You can correct me if you think I'm wrong. You would rather assign meaning to a homicidal maniac than to actually address the things that I said today that are actually harming Black America. Number 1, father absence. Number 2, the education system and the illiteracy rate. Illegal immigration ranks high, abortion ranks high, white supremacy and white nationalism, if I had to make a list again of 100 things, would not be on it. This hearing, in my opinion, is a farce, and it is ironic that you're sitting here and you're having 3 Caucasian people testify and tell you what their expertise are. Do I know what my expertise are? Black in America. I've been Black in America my whole life, all 30 years, and I can tell you that you guys have done the exact same thing every 4 years ahead of an election cycle, and it needs to stop.
I'll yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Meadows.
Yeah, a threat is a threat, but we need numbers so we know how much of a threat it is. An asteroid hitting the Earth is a threat, but maybe there's a 1 in 5 trillion chance of that happening, so we will act accordingly. It's hard to have an argument when there's no concrete numbers and only circumstantial evidence.
So tonight you have presented the Republican Party as advocating on behalf of individual liberties, even if that means deregulation so that there could be a smaller government and essentially people can have more freedoms, personal freedoms. Despite the fact that that might undermine the Clean Water Act and lead companies to pollute the waters with toxic waste with no repercussions. However, my question to you is, how can you explain the deregulation that the Republican Party supports for smaller government and simultaneously the hundreds, if not thousands, of bills passed by Republican officials since 2011 that have policed the woman's body and limited female access to contraceptives and to abortion?
All right. Somewhat like the mosquito in the nudist colony, I'm trying to figure out where to begin. Well, all right. So, I'll say a very quick word about abortion, a very quick word about deregulation. Abortion first. We talk about birth control and abortion. Let's set aside for one moment the debate about whether or not abortion is a constitutional right. I would submit that it is not. You can read the Constitution, squeeze lemon juice on it, hold it upside down, it's just not in there. But let's assume it was. Let's assume it was sort of invisibly there as part of the Bill of Rights. right up there with free speech and right up there with the right to religion and the right to assembly and so on. Here's my question to you. Why should the abortion right be subsidized when none of our other fundamental rights are? I mean, you have a right to free speech. Does the government give you money to start a newspaper? You have a Second Amendment right to own a gun. Is the government going to buy you a shotgun? You have a right to free assembly. You got to do it on your own time. You have a right to free exercise of religion. The government's not going to pay for your churches. So, since the government pays for none of our other fundamental rights, why does this right get to be in a category of itself? That's my point number one.
This mosquito has got a lot of meat to dive into, and he sure is going headfirst into it all. You don't get free money to go start a podcast for your freedom of speech. The government ain't giving you free money for anything else.
How many hours do you work, Eric?
60 hours a week.
60 hours a week. And how many hours do you work at home?
The same. More. All day, all night.
Really? And then you woke up and realised you were dreaming, you mean?
Well, my day doesn't end sometimes.
What do you mean your day don't end? It don't bloody begin. You spent time on the phone. You spent time just walking around the house, up and down. You spent time walking back and forth from a dining table with your kids. I don't know what you do with your hours. But I tell you one thing as a woman, if my husband's working, I do want to make sure that I'm doing what I should be doing at home. And if now I'm making you think about that, because this is the first time I've seen you become emotional, because it's the first time you've even had to sit and think about your actions. You're right.
She thought she worked all those hours at home until someone clued her into the fact that she doesn't, and her whole viewpoint came crashing down around her. Sometimes people just need a wake-up call, and sometimes it has to be loud for them to accept it.
Your group, however, has been exceptionally critical of this. They have said that any restriction of the flow across the southern border is an abhorrent betrayal of American values and is inhumane. Cruel and inhumane, to be precise. Is it your view that any enforcement of our immigration law, that if we have anything other than an open border, the policy is cruel, inhumane, and an abhorrent betrayal of American values?
I'm not familiar with that particular statement. I can tell you why I joined the organization, and it is because I believe in its mission to provide quality counsel.
Let me just ask you this more fundamentally. Do you believe we have a crisis at the southern border?
I do not believe it is my position to opine on such policy questions. I think those policy questions are very important.
But you're a member of a board of directors. You're a director at an organization that has taken many such positions. So it seems to me you have taken a position. Your organization certainly has. You represent them. You're a member of that board.
If you took a position, you got to stick by your position. You can't be all gung-ho 1 minute and then wishy-washy the next.
If Black Lives Matter, why aren't we talking about Black fathers? Why aren't we talking about the single motherhood rate in the Black community, which has jumped from 25% to 73% in the Black community? Why aren't we talking about the fact that when you remove fathers from the home, your kid is worse off in life? You're 20 times more likely to end up in prison. Why aren't we talking about the fact that you're 9 times more likely to drop out of high school? They don't talk about any of those issues because they don't care. They really are just a political arm of the Democratic Party. Even the people that disagree with me in the Black community, because they feel that they want to disagree with me, they'll go look up the facts and they'll find out that I'm actually telling the truth. You're out here boycotting police officers because 16 unarmed Black men are killed accidentally by police officers. That's what you're boycotting?
A lot of things matter to Black people. They don't want to be shot by police. They also want to keep a strong family around them. They also want their children to do well in school. It's all true.
Hi, Matt. I'm transgender. I'm born and raised here in New Mexico. I have a graduate degree in information technology, marketing, business, and finance. I own my own home. I pay taxes. I have a 6-figure job. I'm a respected professional in Albuquerque. I'm a mother. My life experience is that I'm an awesome person. I am well-liked. I'm responsible, and I think I'm pretty cool. You touched on something. You said something earlier that for you, when somebody calls you a man, it doesn't faze you because, like, you just know that you're a man. That was interesting to me because I feel the same way about my identity as a woman. My question leading up to this, you've asserted that no one would ever see me as a woman, that nobody would ever see or could see a transgender person as a woman. And yet, I have dozens of friends from diverse backgrounds. Women from the reservation, a woman from Japan, several immigrant women. I have my coworkers, I have my boss, my VP, my CEO, all respecting me as a woman. My family, my long-term friends who are actually here with me. All of these people assure me, like, I'm a woman. They'll tell me, girl, like, there is no way you are a man. They see me as a woman. So the question, how can you assert that nobody would ever see me as a woman when my material experience tells me you're wrong?
Okay. It's interesting that that's the part of my talk you chose to ask a question about, because that's not in my talk at all. I don't believe I said that no one would ever see you as a woman. I mean, it's possible, I suppose, that you could fool someone. Now, you brought this up, so I have to tell you that you brought this up. You've put your identity on the table for conversation. And so I'm going to say you wouldn't fool me at all. I mean, I see a man 100%. And I think that most people would. Now, the fact that you have people in your life who are saying to you, oh, you're totally a woman, that's exactly what I'm talking about. No one in my life has ever once said to me, you're totally a man, Matt. You know, if a friend of mine called me on the phone and said, listen, Matt, I want you to know you're really a man, I would think that there was something wrong with him. I would say, why are you saying that at all? It doesn't make any sense. So the fact that this is a conversation to begin with tells me, it only proves the point that I'm trying to make, that your identity, even in your own mind, is up for, it's something that you need to be assured of. Now, what I would like to ask you, again, because you're standing here, and so you've brought your identity on the table for discussion. So how do you know that you're a woman?
It was first when I heard transgender persons describe their experience in their own words, and this was only about 2 years ago. Hearing somebody describe things, it was a woman from like England, describing her experience, her childhood, her teenage years. And it blew my mind to be listening to her, because it was just some podcast that I was listening to while I was like doing laundry. But it blew my mind to hear somebody so eloquently and precisely describe things that I had experiences
What
that
was
I
the
had
description?
experienced.
What did they say?
Okay, so I am honestly hesitant. I know that you touched earlier about the difficulty that transgender women might have in describing their identity, but I want to state, I honestly don't feel that you would engage in this conversation in good faith.
Then why are
And
you here?
so-
Why did you stand up to talk to me if you don't want to have a conversation? You're saying that you discovered that you're a woman. I'm asking you how you did. That's a very fair question.
Okay.
How do you know that you're a woman?
That's fine. All right. So first of all, listening to transgender people, and it was like, okay, this is a one-off, one person describing these things. Things like looking at yourself in the mirror and not recognizing yourself. Hearing compliments like, you are such an example, like a positive masculine role model. And just hearing that and being like, it feels like they're talking about somebody else. It means feeling alone, even when you're surrounded by guys, even when you have a lot of friends. And I was active in like Boy Scouts. I'm an Eagle Scout. I had great masculine role models my whole life. And yet I never felt like I belonged. I felt welcome and included.
Why does that make you a woman?
Because
As opposed to just a man who doesn't get along with some other men, or a man who's depressed, or a man who doesn't feel at home totally in his body, which, by the way, is a pretty universal human experience. Everybody goes through it at one time or another. So in what way does that make you a woman, though? And it's interesting. You're telling me that you listen to the experiences of other transgender people.
Well, yeah.
But what about women?
So
because trans women are women, you would say, right?
This guy wasn't fooled, and in addition to that, he let this person know he wasn't fooled. Just because you didn't like Boy Scouts doesn't make you a woman. A lot of people don't like Boy Scouts. So much camping and tying knots in ropes, who needs it?
Are men and women equal? Women are better than men. What do men bring to the world? Literally nothing. Women, the vibes, everything is brought to by women.
Everything you know and love. If you look around the entire infrastructure of our nation, our economy, the camera that's filming you right now, the microphone you're speaking to, everything is built, maintained through men.
Did men allow you to have that haircut?
Feminism stops whenever it's inconvenient for y'all. In Ukraine, you have all the wives getting shipped out to Moscow and all these other nations, and they're partying in clubs and getting railed by other guys while their husbands are forced to stay in the nation. You don't see any feminists saying, hey, no, the women should stay also.
It's like a white, cisgendered, like straight appearing man.
Are you assuming my sexuality? That was very rude of you. I feel oppressed right now.
You should go.
It's probably a horrible position to take if you're fighting for equality between the genders and your opening argument is women are better than men and men bring nothing to the world. They do know that that's the opposite of equal rights, right? Everyone here had the right to free speech. They also had the right to make themselves sound like a dummy. That's their choice, and they made it. Don't complain to us when everyone sees it happen for themselves.